Hornet's Nest. That's what the Confederate soldiers called the position at Shiloh, a sunken road where Union troops under General Benjamin Prentiss held their ground for 6 hours against wave after wave of assault. Surrounded, outnumbered, taking fire from all sides. The Confederates needed that position to punch through the Union line, but Prentiss and his men didn't know it at the time. But by holding that ground for 6 hours, imagine that, surrounded for 6 hours, and all you've got is your musket and your bayonet, they bought the Union Army time to regroup and ultimately hold the field. By the time Prentiss surrendered what was left of his force, over 2,000 of his men were dead, wounded, or captured. The position earned its name from the sound of the musket fire, so constant and fierce it sounded like a swarm of angry hornets. Recently, over the course of 2025, have discovered in northern Illinois a funeral home that doesn't know that it's surrounded in similar fashion. And in fact, this is a story that repeats over and over again across the country. For 3 generations, they've held their ground. Same corner lot, same family, same reputation for doing right by people when life falls apart. But the landscape has completely and totally changed. A corporate consolidator has quietly purchased the funeral homes 2 towns over. Then the historic downtown location everyone thought was untouchable. Press releases about preserving legacy and honoring tradition. Each location keeps its old name. The families who sold stay on for a year, maybe 2, and then they quietly disappear. The encirclement is complete before anyone even notices. The family firm keeps running the same plays. Obituaries in the local newspapers and on their websites, handshakes at the Rotary, familiar faces. The formula has worked for 60 plus years. What you don't see, the corporate operators aren't competing on service. They're competing on position. Every surrounding firm now has venture capital behind it. Call center infrastructure, CRM systems tracking every family contact, and regional pricing models that can undercut local rates on some services while jacking up margins on others. In other words, a lot more strategic than I see you being. The independent firm is taking fire from all sides. Families start shopping price because the corporate locations have trained them to, and you've done nothing. The place across town quoted us $3,200 less for the same casket. Pre-need leads dry up because the corporate firms have agents in every church, country club, and senior center. With commission splits the independent can't touch. Staff get recruited away with benefit packages and PTO policies the family business just can't afford. Every week brings another assault. And like Prentiss at the Hornet's Nest, they hold their ground. Not because they have a plan, because retreat isn't in their vocabulary. This is the family business, their name on the sign, their grandfather's reputation to protect. What they don't see, they aren't just fighting to hold their business. They're fighting to pass something on to the next generation. The son is already working there, learning the routes, learning the ropes, meeting the families, sitting in on arrangements, being groomed to take over as he finishes his own training, except he isn't inheriting a business. He's inheriting a job. And in some cases, it's a terrible job, a job that requires him to be as skilled, as connected, and as dedicated as his father and grandfather were, but without the 40 years of relationship building that made them successful, that built the business into what it is today, a job that only works because families trust dad, not because systems create value independent of who shows up. He's inheriting a Rolodex of relationships he didn't build, a reputation tied to his father's name, not his own, an operational model that depends entirely on one person's accumulated trust. He's inheriting a dying tradition in a market where every competitor has built thriving business on systems, not personalities. They work longer hours, cut their own salaries, dip into savings to cover payroll, keep saying yes to families even when the math doesn't work. They're holding that position, but no one is coming to relieve them. The Hornet's Nest at Shiloh bought them time for the Union Army to establish a defensive line and ultimately hold the field. Prentiss and his men didn't know they were serving that larger strategic purpose. They just knew they had orders to hold. The Northern Illinois firm is fighting the same battle, surrounded, taking casualties, holding their ground. The difference? They don't know what they're fighting for. And in fact, in a lot of ways, they don't even know how hard they're going to have to fight. There's no larger defensive line forming behind them. No strategic purpose their sacrifice is serving. just slow attrition wearing down good people who think grit and reputation will be enough. By the time they understand the position they're in, the only question left is whether to surrender the ground or to die. Tragedy isn't just that they're fighting, it's what they're fighting to preserve. A business that requires the one asset that doesn't transfer, a position that can only be held by someone with relationships they've spent 40 years building. They think they're protecting their legacy. They're actually ensuring no one can inherit it. This is John Ashworth. If you want to talk pre-need and how it can become the growth engine for the future of your business and how you can fight back on all of this, we'd love to start that conversation with you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Take care, everybody.